Kerri. I'm very excited.
Woo! We're here.
LinkedIn Live. Okay, and
All right.
I don't see us streaming right now, but hopefully it's just taking a second for it to kick in.
Okay.
Just checking all my links. This is where it'd be good if we had a oh, I think we are live. I'm starting to see
Yay! Did it. Step
awesome.
one.
Finally, technology does work for me.
Woo.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'm so happy that you're here to talk to me today about the lovely world of compliance.
I am happy to be here.
Very exciting. It's funny with your company name, Comply With Me. It's like an earworm in my head. Is every time I see your name, I always start like, comply with me.
You know what? A funny story about that. I think I went through this innovation program and I was trying to think of a name for a compliance company, and I was sitting down with my spouse. And he's funny, he's hilarious. And I'm like, what's a good name for a company? He's like, Comply With Me. He just came up with it like that. And then I was like, no, that's silly. But after a while, I get it. It became like an earworm, and I was singing it in my head as well. And there you go.
I love how catchy it is. It excites me. So actually, having said that, I have obviously a bunch of questions I'm going to be asking you today. Sure. So, talking about how you came up with your business. So tell me a little bit about your career journey, and, why did you decide to get into the compliance I can't even say the word, compliance consultancy. And yeah.
It's a word sandwich, the compliance consultancy business, whatever. Well, okay. So I am a lawyer. I'm a practicing lawyer, and I've been practicing for roughly 16 years. Most of my practice has been in the area of banking and securities. And I did litigation for quite a long time, and then wormed my way into compliance, which I think a lot of lawyers end up doing, and it's a really important part of business, just generally understanding the compliance world. So worked my way into compliance, did wealth management compliance, where I was responsible for essentially governance across all of the wealth management groups. So I did a lot of reporting, a lot of confirming that the compliance programs were running effectively. I ran the registrations team. I did a whole bunch of stuff, and then also worked in an ethics role for a little while. So basically, those are the three hats there in terms of my professional career. And then I took this master's program, an LLM at U of T. And in my last semester of that program, I was given the opportunity to take this course called Design Thinking. And I remember sitting in that course, in the first course, and just thinking, it was taught by this great guy called Chris Ferguson, who's an expert in design thinking. And I remember sitting there thinking, what am I doing with my life? I thought that design thinking was the most innovative way to approach any type of business. And then I started thinking, well, how can I use this in my role as a lawyer, as a compliance and an ethics professional? And the idea came to me to start why not, right? So I started a law firm. The law firm does do core work where I support a lot of small businesses, tech startups, pharma companies, stuff like that. But I also practice in legal design, which means that in my firm, everything that I do is focused on the user. I try to generally, in all of my work, I do a lot of policies and procedures. I focus on how do I create something that is user-friendly, that people will actually use. And some of that involves speaking with the users, interviewing them, and then also doing testing. So when you own a law firm and you're doing policies and procedures and you're providing advice on securities and wealth management, the next logical step is, well, okay, so I've provided this information to the user, which is usually an employee, but are they actually retaining the information? And so that's sometimes an unknown. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. But I essentially started this compliance company that is focused on creating really amazing educational content. And we try to be a standout in the market. We don't do the seminars. We try not to do the talking heads. We do animation. We do things that are really interesting, and we focus on topics that are designed to grab someone's attention, to teach them about the policy or the procedure, or show them about a new law, or teach them about a law that they should already know about, or a regulation they should know about. So Comply With Me does that. We do education, and we do production. We do all of that stuff.
That's amazing. So I forgot to actually do your bio, but you just did that for me. So I skipped ahead. I was so excited to get right into it because I think that is so interesting. I think that's what I think is so interesting, is that you've taken something that I would think, not knowing the legal profession that well, that is very structured and arguably like really tough for a regular layperson to understand. And so
Right.
You're reverse engineering that by making it easier for people to consume. And I love that, because it's taking something that's very complicated and making it simplified for the user, which I absolutely love. I think that's fantastic and probably very innovative.
That's essentially what it is, because it's funny, when you practice for a long time, you do realize that you spend a lot of time providing advice, and the advice is all about the law, it's about the case law, it's about the regulation and what you should or should not do. So compliance and the legal groups within corporations, they tend to be the organization of no. So a lot of times the business comes to you and they're looking for advice. Yes, but they're also looking for permission. How can we get this thing achieved? How can we achieve this product? How can we achieve this business goal? And I think design thinking, or thinking about the user and how you actually bring the law to them, how you make it more approachable, more understandable. I think generally the world is going in that direction. I mean, you're a big proponent of AI, right? AI is coming in, it's disrupting. So I think us lawyers, us compliance professionals, we have to really start thinking about how we bring the law to the users, how we make it more accessible, because sitting on that perch, being traditional, the traditional practice, it's not going to work for us anymore.
Well, definitely. And I spent all weekend like just going right deep into this AI, and 100% the thing that I'm getting reassured over and over again is what AI and some of these other tools is hopefully going to make it a much more user-friendly experience, that everything is going to be positioned in a way that you're already at the forefront of this, of making things that are difficult to understand and simplifying it, making it easier. So I love that you're already there, making sure that the end user, the customers, the clients, whomever it is, that they're understanding that you're taking away all of that, like you said, the jargon, all of the the things that and to make that easier, not only for the end user but also for those continuing education credits, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the reality, Leslie, which you know already, is that people are already going to tools like ChatGPT anyways. So it would be naive of us to think that people are going to not continue to use these products and to embrace them more. And so I think that just generally in our profession, my profession, we have to start thinking outside the box, and we have to start thinking about how can we provide value add. And I have to say that AI, just talking about AI for 2 seconds, it's not there yet. So I don't think that tomorrow I'm going to be out of a job. I don't think compliance professionals will be out of a job tomorrow, but it's getting there. And so it would be naive of us to think that customers, clients, users aren't going directly to that source. That source is not necessary. I mean, it provides, ghost case law. I've used it for all sorts of things, but we are definitely going in that direction. And so it's better for us to be approachable to the user rather than them go on ChatGPT or another AI and try to figure it out on their own. It might not be giving them the right information, the right guidance on how to comply with a law or reg, but we're definitely headed in that direction.
Yeah, and like you said, what did you just call it, a ghost?
Yes, like ghost case law. It'll just make up case law.
Yeah, which is, I mean, that's the thing, the hallucinations that happen. That's the thing that people don't necessarily take into consideration, right? That some of, like, these tools, if they don't have the answer, they're making it up, and we have to be very careful about that. Which is why you're right. You're not going to be losing a job anytime soon because they still need lawyers.
That's right. Exactly.
So, given your extensive experience in compliance, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that companies face today?
It's a really good question because um, within compliance, I would say that most companies have a compliance program in some respect. And so either the legal team is running it or it's run in form of audit. It depends on the size of the company. But most companies understand the need for a compliance program. They also have pretty good governance. And so the steps are there in most corporations. They implement the idea of compliance, they do testing, they follow the laws or regulations that apply to their business. And they generally they do reporting on it. So they have the fundamentals in place. However, what I found in my experience is that often, if you're a regulated company, a regulator will come in, they'll say it's great that you have this compliance program, you're ticking all the boxes, you have policies and procedures in place. But the problem is that the employees are not reading them. And so that's the biggest problem. It's not that people don't want to comply, it's that they don't know the thing exists, or it exists and they're just not reading it because, let's face it, we're all busy. We have clients to deal with. We're busy from day to day. And so we're not necessarily reading that important thing. And so I find that often regulators are finding that the individuals just aren't complying. So if we look at a very easy thing like outside business activities, so if I work in a business, generally I have an obligation to report my outside activity. However, all people know that they have to do this. They just don't. Because why? It's because I'm forgetting. And so what Comply With Me does is Comply With Me takes the policy, the procedure, the regulation, and then it creates really interesting educational content to remind people that they have to comply. So for example, on the outside business activity, now called outside activity in the securities industry, what we did is we created an animated video that had a paper doll. And so our paper doll comes on screen, and throughout the video, he changes into various outfits. And so at one point, he's a rabbi, and at one point, he's a police officer, and at one point, he's sitting on a board. But that's to remind people that they have to report their outside activity. So the idea of creating something that's really interesting, a paper doll where different outfits snap onto him, is that it will remind the person, it will create better recall, it will allow them to remember, oh yeah, I forgot, we have that policy, I have to comply, I have to report my outside activity. So that's essentially what I see. It's not that corporations don't comply, it's not that individual employees don't want to comply, it's that they forget or they don't know the thing exists. And so that's the value of providing, bringing the law, bringing compliance to the individual user.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more insofar as, without having any experience in the law at all, but knowing even that privacy policies and those kinds of things, I mean, they're just so, a lot of them are so legalese
Legalese.
and watches them. In one of the classes that I used to teach during college, I would have my students watch, it was a cute video, I'll have to send it to you, and it is from the Australian Air Force that takes the privacy policy, the social media policy of the do's and the don'ts, and the same thing like Comply With Me is turn it into like a fun story where it's consumable, as opposed to somebody having to sit and read through a legal booklet, which most of us don't do. Those like human resource manuals, the privacy policy, the social media policy, and I'll have to send the video to you because it's really cute, and it's something digestible. It's something you want to watch with the do's and the don'ts. And it doesn't have to be complicated, right?
I fully agree with you. And then I think that the point of education when you're talking, so that is a perfect example. We have really complex privacy policy. There's all these different rules and regs that apply. It's probably cross-border. So you have different jurisdictions, complicated. And then what you do is you take a little animated cartoon and you distill it into the do's and don'ts, but these are the absolute necessaries. And then if there's a gray area and someone doesn't know how or whether they need to comply, all they have to do is open up that policy. So it's a guide to send them to the thing that you want, the dense legal document, the dense privacy policy, if that's what you want to do. But yeah, I agree. I think so comply with me. What we do essentially is just that. We tell a story. So we have our own Pixar formula. That's what I call it, for ripping off the, the term, but we tell a story. And so if we're dealing with a law or regulation, we try to figure out a way, how are we going to tell a story in a way that it's memorable, that the individual will retain the information. And then when something comes up, it'll be a memory trigger that they go, oh yeah, I have to comply. And so storytelling is absolutely key. Our formula involves very short snippets of information. So I don't know how long that privacy video was, but I bet it was pretty short, because people, research is telling us that people do not retain information if they're sitting there for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, listening to a talking head or a seminar. They're just not retaining the information. People have very short spans. And we're finding that shortening based on, social media or access to our phones, it's really hard to keep someone's attention. So at least in Comply With Me, what we do is we try to make the information very short bursts of info, between 3 to 5 minutes. And then in between, we put in the exam. So we don't jam it in at the end where someone's trying to pay attention for 45 minutes, taking notes, and then at the end, just, trying to get through that exam. That's not what we do. So we have our own Pixar formula. And similar to that video you were talking about, really try to hammer home the message, but in a really creative way, the most creative way possible that creates the memory trigger.
Well, it sounds like what you're doing is so innovative, and it's probably the polar opposite of every other compliance and legal sort of, you've taken your education in the compliance industry, and I'm sure it was not easily digestible and consumable and all those other things. And it was probably, I can't imagine it would hurt my brain.
Listen, yeah, it hurt my brain. I mean, I went through it, and a lot of people, a lot of employees, I think if anyone's listening to this and you work at a corporation or a firm, or you probably do 4 to 5 hours of training a year. And what does that do to you? You don't want to do it. It takes you away from your clients. It's boring. It's mind numbing. You forget 90% of what you learned anyway. And so you're right. The idea is to take all of the traditional ways that we do compliance education, turn it on its head, and make something that's new and innovative in the market.
Yeah, and from the financial, I've worked with quite a few different financial services companies, and compliance is always the one that they go,
oh.
I got to deal with compliance. So you're not actually, for those people that have to go through those compliance training, the shoulders go like, oh, I got to do it. I think I would assume that with Comply With Me, it's like a lot, it would be more fun. That's what the design is, to be more fun and more oh, at least if I have to take this training anyway, I might as well make it fun.
Enjoyable. Yeah. Exactly. So we provide training that's on demand, meaning that we have videos that are accredited by the regulator for registrants. So basically anyone who's registered in a securities world who needs to maintain their registration every 2 years or so, depending on what regulator you're registered with, you have to maintain your education. You have to do a certain amount of education credits. And so we have videos that are available on demand. And then we also do ad hoc training, and we'll create stuff as well. And so we do partner with a lot of people, and you are actually one of our partners. So yes, you are. And so we should talk about that. How was the experience for you being a partner with Comply With Me?
Oh my gosh, it was so great. Your team is so amazing, and it was a lot of fun recording the video, the LinkedIn video about all the basics of LinkedIn. And yeah, it was great. And what I loved of having seen just the beginning sort of snippets is just how professional everything looked too, and how as I said, your team comes at it in such a way that let's just make this fun and try to make it. I hope I was fun in the videos. It's a little hard when you're looking down the barrel of a camera to be
You know what? You're absolutely fantastic. So just to bring everyone up to speed, Comply With Me, we do some partnerships. And what we do is we're looking for really, really interesting topics on anything in the securities and banking world. And I approached Leslie because obviously Leslie's in financial services and she is a guru at LinkedIn, as everybody knows. And the idea for this is, well, how basically registrants, people who are registered or not registered, but anyone in the financial world, you need to have online presence. You have to have a good LinkedIn portfolio, but you have to do it in a way that complies with laws and regulations, at least in our world where it's very heavily regulated. And so the idea was, well, how do we come up with a partner who knows something about LinkedIn, can teach us all about it, but then we'll pepper it with laws and regulations. So Leslie graciously agreed to be one of our partners. We're so excited to work with her, and we booked a studio, and Leslie showed up. And I think, how many cameras did you have pointed at you? 2?
At least 2, yeah.
At least 2. And we had a film crew, and the designer was there taking notes about how we can create this amazing video. And you did great. You were really good. I mean, it's hard in front of a camera when cameras are pointed at you to deliver, but you did a fantastic job.
You're so sweet. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, when you're looking to, it's a lot different than being like in this situation where I can pause like I'm doing now, or like just a little hiccup.
Think about what, yes.
You're looking down the barrel of a camera and you're just being like, hi, and you were talking about LinkedIn. It's a whole lot different. So no, it was still a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to like the finished product to see, because it did, from the beginning snippets, it looks really good. So I'm like, who's that? Who that on camera?
That I know. Well, you looked fantastic, number one, but then your delivery was really great and spot on. And I guess that's the benefit about recording yourself, is that when you do the ums and ahs, or you pause, or you think, or whatever, we can chop that out. So I am looking forward to seeing what the final version is. And everyone, keep your eyes peeled for that final Leslie featuring Leslie masterclass on LinkedIn. So we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, get registered on complywithme.ca.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
What does it mean to be accredited, Kerri? What does that mean?
So that's a really good question. When you are what we call registrants, so in the financial world, there are a lot of people who have different rules, and generally those rules involve selling products. And when you sell a specific product, you have to be registered with a regulator, an SRO, a regulator. I'm just using the term loosely, in order to sell that product. So, for example, if you sell insurance, a lot of people have to be registered provincially to sell insurance. If you sell a security of some kind, you have to be registered provincially. And if you sell a mutual fund, the same thing, it's registration. So generally, these people are highly educated. They work really hard. They take a lot of courses. Those courses lead to a certificate and lots of letters behind their name. But essentially, when you are accredited, you are somebody who needs to do a lot of work to maintain your accreditation. And so we our courses, for example, are accredited with CIRO. And so CIRO is a mixture of IROC and the MFDA. They just merged together to create one SRO. And so we've had all of our courses accredited. We've gone through the application process. So if you watch one of our courses, they do count towards those continuing education credits that people need to maintain in order to maintain those designations.
So if they have to do it, they might as well do it with you.
Right. That's right. Might as well make it interesting, my friends.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So we only have about like 6 more minutes.
Yeah.
So, one of the last questions I sort of is like you mentioned that working with somebody like me is a partnership. And so talk, like, are you looking for other kinds of experts to develop content as well?
Yeah, thanks, Leslie. So yeah, basically, essentially, Comply With Me is looking to partner with anybody. If you are of any type of background and you're an expert in any field, so I'm talking crypto, insurance, We have a LinkedIn expert. We're good. But but if you are an expert in compliance, maybe AML, maybe anyway, a whole host of issues. If you are an expert in any area, we are definitely looking for partnerships. Partnership includes you provide the expertise, we will provide the entire infrastructure in order to create that masterclass video featuring you. We then take that video, we will produce it, we will edit it, we design it, we do all of it. If there's a need for a voice actor, we have voice actors, but we essentially will produce that masterclass for you in your area of expertise. We will also get that accredited and we will post it online. So we are definitely looking for partners. If there's anyone else out there and you are interested in being a partner, look us up on comply.ca and we will happily have a chat with you. And let's talk about partnering and what we can do together. Raise your profile, right, Leslie?
All about being out there. I'm just writing down. I think I might have someone I could introduce you to.
Oh,
more partnerships, more continuing ed, more, right?
More. The more the better. We're always looking for interesting topics and essentially, like, again, we're thinking outside the box. So what do you think someone needs to know about? Maybe it's how to deal with a client, how to do sales, how to do manners, how do you deal with different types of clients, different backgrounds, diversity, all sorts of things. So anyway, if anybody out there has a really interesting idea, we're open to those ideas.
Now I've written down like 3 names now. Now I'm like, oh, we're going to diversity, we're going to sales. I think that there's a lot of organizations, Kerri, you and I've had this discussion too, that for a lot of, particularly in compliance and other organizations as well, is there isn't a whole lot of onboarding training insofar as how do you learn about what to do with a client, but not necessarily how to the sales and marketing piece of it, or just other other things that are important that we have to sort of take through the lens of our clients, our customers, to see how they, how are they serving their end user. So I think I have a few people that I can introduce you to for more partnerships. So people just better reach out to you.
That's right. Absolutely. Those soft skills are so important because ultimately it's not just about jamming your product down a person's throat, right? I mean, people want to be able to connect with their salesperson. They want to really know that they have their best interests in mind, and a lot goes into that. And so it is important that you're learning about those products, but then also you're maintaining your education on the soft skills, because they're not that soft. They're the most important things that you can do is network and engage and just really get to know those clients, because that's going to create better, more meaningful relationships. Absolutely.
I heard it at a meeting. They're not called soft skills anymore. They're called power skills. And at first I rolled my eyes a little bit like, oh, here we go. Another thing that's being renamed. But you're right. They are much more power skills, and that moving forward as I sort of, again, I'm kind of going back to the AI thing and how some things are going to be definitely automated, that the human experience is there's just more time for us to be more human to human. And so I love what you're doing, and you're already ahead of the game as far as putting the human at the very center and the very front of the entire experience, especially when it's complicated terminology like compliance and legal and all those other kinds of. I would think it'd be very fun. I don't even know how you would have gone down that rabbit hole to go into that industry. You're such a fun personality, and law and compliance does not seem to fit your personality.
Well, I have to say that I find that lawyers are some of the weirdest, funniest people ever. You just have to get them on a good day when they're not arguing. And then compliance too, give a compliance person a glass of wine and you're having a great time. So I think that being innovative and thinking outside the box, not just ticking the box, it is within everybody out there. Anyone in our profession, you can think outside the box. And what you need to focus on is how to keep people's attention, how to keep eyeballs, how to make sure that they're aware of the difficult issues. And with that, thanks so much, Leslie, for having me.
Well, how can people get in touch with you other than obviously here on LinkedIn where we're recording live, but how else can people get in touch with you other than LinkedIn?
Well, so my law firm is kerrisalata.com. Comply with me, comply.ca. I'm available on LinkedIn. Comply with me is also on LinkedIn. On Instagram, I'm at Legal Design Canada for the law firm, and Comply With Me also has an Instagram account. So please add us to all of them. We create really interesting content. Obviously, I try not to be boring, and so we promise we will not bore you if you follow us. So
I've seen your stuff. I think it's interesting, and then I'm going to be showcased pretty soon. So of course,
yes,
my own horn. Of course, people need to follow you so they can see
yes,
what's going on next and get some LinkedIn tips and stuff too.
absolutely. Can't wait.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. It's been so fun.
Thank
And
you for having me.
I will see you soon. Okay.